Hi there, welcome to Alpine Bravo. My name is Brendan. This is my channel for all things Microsoft Flight Simulator. In this video today, I'm just going to be doing a tutorial on how to modify an airport in the simulator to get rid of things like trees. And lots of resources are available on YouTube and on the internet about how to do scenery editing in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it can seem pretty daunting if you've not done it before. So the aim of this video is just to show you the real basics of how to get started and simply remove some excess trees from an airport that you want to fly in or out of. So the first thing you're going to need to do is to get into developer mode. If you don't know how to do that, it's simply options, general options, developers, on. Apply and save. Now we have the developer mode options here. The next thing you're going to need to do is to download the software development kit for Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's very straightforward. You just click on Help, SDK Installer Core. Click on that. It will launch a download. Unzip that if necessary and install. And if you follow the default installation path, it will install onto your C drive and you will get an MSFS SDK folder here. And I'm just going to point out a thing that you'll need later. So go into it, go into Tools, go into Bin, and then here you'll see a little executable called FS Package Tool. We want to make a copy of that just in somewhere more readily accessible, some handy folder, because you're going to be using that at a later point. So I'm just going to right click on that and move it to my scenery projects folder. I've got pinned in quick access here. And in fact, we're going to copy there. Okay, and once you've done that, you can largely forget about the SDK folder. Just close that down. You can install the documentation as well, although you can also get that through the Microsoft developers web pages as well. It's up to you. There are tutorial videos and things like that, but really you don't need any of those because you're watching this. So now we've got the SDK installed, we're going to go to the airport that we want to modify, and it's just the same as with any regular flight. Click on the world map, and today we are going to be editing Broadford Airstrip in the Isle of Skye in Scotland, X3 Bravo Romeo Oscar. And that is not actually the correct, most up-to-date ICO code for Broadford, so we'll change that too. So we'll just click on that, we'll zoom to the details, and we'll choose a parking spot, set that as our departure. Flight conditions, set it to clear skies and make sure the time of day is daylight. This makes the editing easier if you don't have to worry about what's going on with the weather, and it will reduce the load on your processor as well. So we'll close that, hit fly, and we'll go into the sim as per normal. So here we are in the sim in a Cessna 152 in our parking spot as per normal. Now we will just hop out into the drone camera, which I'm flying using a Xbox controller, because it makes life a lot easier, just to get an overview of where we're going to be working. And what we're aiming to do is to remove trees that aren't there in reality. And I know in reality that there are some trees along here, the access road, but none of the rest of this is actually vegetated to this scale. It's low-lying scrub and gorse, it's not big trees. So that's what we're going to be aiming to do, is to remove all of these trees either side of the field. Now in this case it's not so serious as you get with some bush strips where you have trees right on the threshold obstructing the approach, and that's you know, this is more for cosmetic purposes. in this case, but in other cases you'll be wanting to do it because otherwise the approach is too difficult. One thing you will notice there is that there was some AI traffic taking off, and that's a handy reminder. What one thing we can do is we can go into options here and pause the simulation. You'll also notice that disable crashes is ticked as well, and you want that because when you start manipulating the scenery, sometimes it can move your aircraft around as it's rebuilding the scenery, and you don't want the aircraft to crash because that would end your editing session. So as I say, I'm just in the normal drone camera at the moment now, but I'm going to come back out of that, back into the cockpit, and what we're going to do is move on to the next step, which is to create our project using the editor menu. Okay, so the next thing to do is to actually create our project, and we're going to go to File and select New Project. Now I have a 4K monitor here, so some of the windows don't display so well, particularly on the wizard. And I clicked on that, and you can see I've got the Create New Project windows appeared here, and also you've got this Project Editor window has appeared up on the screen as well. I'll talk about that in a second. If it's not displaying properly, you can just drag it out. It always seems to clip the bottom menu options. So just go through it. So this is you can choose by clicking on the dot of where it will save your project to. So we'll just do that, and you can see that I've got it set to the scenery. Just expand it out. I've got this scenery projects folder on my desktop, and some other folders are already in there. So we'll select that. Give the project a name, and I'm going to call it Echo Golf Echo India dash Broadford Aerodrome. And then if you've not got, I've got the creator name and company name is auto-populated. I've got it set up to do that automatically, but it may not do that for you. It may prompt you the very first time you create a project, but if not, just fill something in, and it's particularly important that you have something in the company name, as it will use that to give your project a unique name. And that actually is important in helping prevent CTDs and things like that from conflicts, which can arise when folders have the same name. So we're going to, after that, information is all correct, we're going to hit Create New Project, and it opens another window, and this is the kind of item that we are going to publish. Don't need to worry about the other two options, but basically it's a package, should be pre-selected, click Next. Then it's what kind of item are we going to create with aircraft, airport, visual effect, or custom. In this case, it is an airport. And this is the, again, we will put in Echo Golf, Echo, actually we'll just put in Broadford Aerodrome here. I'm never quite sure which of these fields is the one it uses to show the title on the world map. But anyway, Broadford Aerodrome. We'll hit Next. And okay, so we're in another window here in the wizard, which is Airport Creation. And we've got two basic options at the top: override an existing airport or create an airport anyway. You can also hover on these little information icons to which are typically of a Sobo, really don't tell you that much. Sometimes they're useful, but not always. So it's asking us the airport to override, and there's the old ICAO showing there, and it's detecting that automatically from the location we are in the simulator, and it's automatically pulled the lat long and altitude for it, and the airport name, which we can't change actually because we're overriding XBRO. And I think that probably means we won't be able to change the ICAO of it would have to take another route to do that. Probably create a new airport completely over the top of the existing one. So anyway, that's all okay. We're just going to click on Create Airport. And then nothing seems to have happened, except we've now got the project editor window is active. And you can see here that we have, in this window, we've got some menu options here at the top. Right at the top, it tells us where the project route is. You could expand the window out if we wanted to. Like all these windows are sizable, and that'll show us the route where it's taking the project from. Don't really need to worry about that, but you just want to make sure what we've got here is Alpine Bravo Airport Expo Portree. It's decided because Portree is quite close by, I guess. But if you're not seeing it at first, you want to click on this little down arrow, and then it will be Scenery BGL, and you just need to click on that. And then from here in View, we're going to open another window called the Inspector, and that tells us, you can see that pops up. And what that does is it tells us information about the package that we've selected, the Scenery BGL. It's telling us what type it is, its asset type. This is technical stuff you don't really need to know. All of this should be pre-populated. All you need to do is click Load in Editor. And as soon as you do that, it puts you into actually scenery editing mode, and you can see a whole bunch of windows popped up here. So let's quickly explain what those are. The main one here over here is we've got this scenery editor window, and that is the main window that we use for editing projects. And here it will show all the different objects within the project that you're working on. It's also opened a little window down here called the material editor. We'll leave that open for now. There are other windows that you're going to need to know though, you need to access though. I'll just quickly show. So to do those, we are click on View, and the windows that you typically need are Objects, Properties, and Gizmo. Are the ones that you use for simple editing. Okay, so I'll bring up Objects. So there's another window here, and bring up the Gizmo, which has popped up over here, and you can put places anywhere you want. If you have a second screen, I'd strongly suggest moving quite a lot of them to the second screen. But as you can see, it gets very busy very quickly. So things that you're not using, like the inspector, you can minimize them, get them out of the way, starting to open things up, and you can resize windows as well, just to try and give yourself a workable workspace, like so. And that's all getting a little bit more workable, but a lot easier if you have a second screen that you can go on. In the materials editor, for example, we won't be needing that. We probably won't need the Gizmo either, actually, for using trees. Now, we can actually see what's going on here. What happens is that when you load the scenery through the inspector, it automatically puts you into a developer camera mode, which is very similar to the drone camera mode. And you can control your viewpoint using the same sort of techniques that you'd use to fly the drone camera. So I've got an Xbox controller. Without having to do any configuration, I can use that to fly the camera around. I have noticed that the aircraft is halfway sunk into the ground. You do get funny little things like that happening when you're in scenery editing mode. Don't worry about it. It's one of the reasons you put the aircraft's got crashes disabled. The other way, though, if you don't have a Xbox controller, is using the left Alt key. Hold that down, and then Pressing the left mouse key will give you pan around while moving the mouse, and using, if you've got a wheel, which most mice do these days, you can zoom in and out. And if you've got a center click, whilst holding the Alt key, you can actually grab and move around. So between those, you can do most of what you need to do to get the camera in the position that you need to get it in. And I'm zooming right out. I'm doing all this in the mouse, but it is definitely easier if you've got an Xbox controller. And the other option is you can use the WASD keys, all the keyboard, the classic keyboard controls. So here we are. We've created our project in developer mode. We've got the windows up that we need. We've positioned the camera into a place where we've got a good view of what we want to do, and what we want to do is to get rid of all these trees at the side of the runway. And let me show you how we're going to do that. So on the objects window, you are going to select polygon. Okay, and then make sure one-click placing isn't enabled. We're going to click add. Now you see we've got a little red dot. If I put it against a light background, just at the tip of the mouse, a little red dot. And so what I'm going to do is draw a polygon around the trees that I want to get rid of. So we'll do this group here first of all. I mean, I could just draw one great big huge polygon to cover the lot, but I'll not do that. So position it where I want to, and there'll probably be a little glitch the first time, but hold down the little control key, left control key, click. No, it did it nice and straightforward. So keeping the left control key down, we just go round, right round. We don't have to be particularly tidy about it. And when we get to our last point that we want to do, just hit return, and you'll see it's turned into a magenta color. And in the scenery editor folder, we'll see there's now an object here called polygon. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it and tick the properties, and this is going to tell me about the polygon. I'm going to give it a name, tree X glue 1, which just makes life easier if you've got lots of polygons, so you know which you're working with. And the properties window is pretty important because this is what actually allows us to make changes to what is going on inside that polygon. And what we're looking for is vegetation. You can see there's lots of exclusions here, and we can, if we were wanting to get rid of buildings, we could simply drop in buildings and hit exclude all, and it would get rid of all the buildings inside that polygon. Very handy. However, we want to get rid of trees, so we'll minimize that and we will click vegetation, and you'll see it immediately fills the polygon with trees. But that's just because it's gone to its default setting. And I'll bring this out and open it out so you can see the full window. Now we've got a number of sliders here. So we've got vegetation scale, density, brightness and fall off distance. The only thing that we need to worry about is the density scale, and we're going to slide that to 0. And as you can see, all the trees in that polygon, I'll just minimize that so you can see clearly, all the trees in that polygon are now gone. That is it. That's as simple as that. If you wanted to have some trees, some vegetation, perhaps that, and if you wanted to make them smaller, you can scale them down. As you can see, so if you did want to retain some vegetation, just not have the full-on major pine forest,
What I would say though is if you are going to do that, you've got to be careful and actually draw your polygon correctly. Otherwise, it will draw trees or vegetation wherever inside the polygon. So I did a very quick one, and I drew it over this water feature here, and so it's put trees into the water feature. So let's get rid of all of them, and that is it. And that is all you need to do to get rid of your trees. So we'll do another one over here, get rid of all of these ones. So again, we're going to go back to our objects, and we're going to click add. We've got our little red dot now. Over on the scenery editor window, you'll notice it's got polygon in red, and it says show error below that. That's because it's saying, hey, there's a polygon here, but it's not got enough sides. It has to have at least 3 points on the polygon, otherwise it'll be an error, and it will show as an error. So hold down the left mouse key, click, 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 and just draw our shape around these trees that we want to get rid of. Hit return, and then it's turned magenta. You've got these arrows here. You can use these to move the polygon if you needed to. You can also, if you get the shape a bit wrong with the polygon highlighted, you can go in and try and, in fact, say we've missed out this little clump of trees here. Actually, I want to get rid of them, so just click on the point and you can pick it up. And moving, you might need to move the camera as well at the same time, which is easy if you've got an Xbox controller. And I'm going to use that to extend the shape of my polygon. So that's covered everything I want. Now, as we've already got the property window open, I can just click on that, and I'm going to call it tree exclude 2. And we're again going to go to vegetation, and again it's going to fill it with trees until, not scale, density to 0, and that gets rid of all of those trees. And you can carry on working in this manner to get rid of any of the trees that you don't want. Now, if there are trees that are there in real life, you're going to be a bit more careful that you want to retain, just and draw your polygons appropriately. So having made all the edits that you want to, you now need to save your project and get it created into an actual mod that you can load into your community folder. So we'll look at how you do that now. You can start closing windows down that you don't need. We don't need that. So the important thing that we're going to have to do is click on Save Scenery, and we can see we've got, within this project, we've got our 2 exclusion polygons, and then we've actually got Broadford Airstrip as well, which is the airfield. And we could, if we click on the properties window actually for that, you can see it brings it up here, Broadford Airstrip, and we can add extra information in here if we wanted to, but at the moment that's not something we need to get into. So if it's got an asterisk beside it in this list of names here, it means it is an unsaved change, so we are going to save the scenery. Okay, and that is all you need to do, and now we can quit out of this. We can close that window, and we can close that. We can close the project editor, and you'll see because we've closed the project, the trees have popped back in. That's because we're no longer in an editing mode. That's fine, that's no problem. Okay, and at this point here in the project, you could do a build all, but I find that often in the current SDK will lead to a crash to desktop. And so there's another way of doing it that won't lead to that. So I am going to
out of that, but it does mean that we're going to have to leave the simulator to do the last couple of bits, but you'd have to do that anyway. So we'll just close that, and then we will hit escape in the normal way and end our flight, and we'll jump out the simulator. We've quit out the simulator, and now what we need to do is go to our wherever we saved the project, or when we first created it. And when you first used the wizard to create it and you entered all that information, it's automatically created a folder structure. Now, you'll see videos on YouTube which are a year or two old which don't talk about this, and they have you using a template, a simple scenery template. You don't need to do any of that now. This is a much more straightforward way of doing it, and plus it also gives it a unique name. So we named, here you can see EGEI Broadford Aerodrome. So if I double click on that folder, and we've got a bunch of folders here. This can be really confusing if you're new to it. Don't worry about it. All you really need to know are two folders. Package sources is where the source information used to build the project is, and packages is where you're going to find the package that you actually then put into your community folder. An XML file here, if you're wondering what this is the kind of file that basically marshals all the information and tells the simulator what everything is and where everything is. It's sort of like the index for it, and it's a quite an important file. But that's always there sitting at the top level. But we can't do anything until we build the scenery. Now, we could have done that, as I showed just before, in the project editor, but this is a way of doing it outside the simulator that is guaranteed not to give you a CTD because you're outside the simulator. So if you remember right earlier, we found and copied that FS package tool executable, and I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to take it to EGI Broadford Aerodrome, and I'm going to copy it there. I'm making another copy. You can make as many copies of this as you like, because I like to have one in every project basically. And there we can see it sitting in there. And to build our project, all we're going to do is highlight Broadford Aerodrome XML and drag it over the tool. And you'll see it's launched this window. And in the background, it's sort of trying to launch the simulator. That's just something it has to do for the tool to work. It's fine, it's normal, it's what you'd expected. And you can see here, it's built it. There are no yellow, there's nothing in yellow, there's nothing in red. If it's failed to build it, it'll come up in red. But for something really simple like this, that shouldn't happen. And it's telling me, yep, it's finished. Press any key to continue. That's it. And then you've got this here saying the game has crashed. That's perfectly normal. That's just the tool doing what it needs to do. Just click OK and it goes away. And then we're back into our folder structure here. And now we get to where it really matters. We go to packages. And then this here, this folder here, that is your mod. That is what goes in your community folder. Okay, so I will just highlight it, and I'm going to drag and I'm going to drop it in my community folder. And that's it. So I can go back into the simulator now. So we want to test our mod, and I've gone back into the simulator with the mod loaded into the community folder, launched back into Broadford at the same parking spot as before, and we're going to go into the drone camera. And we'll fly around, and lo and behold, we can see that all the trees are gone, and quite interestingly, it looks like there's I'm assuming that has come from the global shipping AI shipping traffic mod that I've got loaded. I certainly didn't place it there, but yeah, we can see that all those trees from the two exclusions that we did have all been removed. If you were more advanced, you might want to actually scale the trees rather than get rid of them altogether if there was actually some vegetation there that you wanted to retain, or you could go as far as hand placing your scenery. That's just about the most simple thing that you can do. Another really simple thing that you can do is to add parking spots. and let me show you how you can do that. It is very simple. Okay, I got ourselves into dev mode and we've got our menu here, so we can go to File and we can open Recent. There we go. It's right at the top. I'll select that. And it's opened our project editor window and it's loaded our project here. So we're going to select that and we want to get the inspector window open, which opens minimized because that's how I left it. So with the BGL file highlighted, I'm going to hit load in editor. As you can see in the background, it's shifted me into the editor camera view, which is like the drone camera. We can minimize the inspector while it's doing that, and it'll take a minute or two for it to load the scenery. One way you can be, it takes a little while for me because I've got a lot of items in scenery libraries that it needs to load. So I'll just get the objects window, and I'll know it's ready to edit when this gets populated. Okay, now we're ready to edit because all the scenery objects have now popped up in the selections there. On the right in this window are all the different packages which contain scenery objects, like all your custom airports and all sorts of things. And if for personal use, you can use anything, but you can only, if you're going to create a project with any of these scenery objects, you can only do that if you have permission to do so, if you're going to actually publish it. Anyway, that's not our concern today. What we are going to do is add a parking spot. And we're going to go to scenery and select taxiway parking. We'll choose a location. And if we just click add, it will add it to where the center view of the camera is. Another option is to click one place, click on the one-click placing, and then that will bring it up, and then allow you to move it around. Then click to place it, and you can see it's dropped one down. Then you must uncheck one-click placing, otherwise there'll be an error. Okay, and that loaded it as a gate, and you can see actually that there's an error there saying, hey, there's an error here. If we it's added it as a gate medium now, the reason it's showing it as an error because gates need to be associated with other objects in the simulator, so actually we didn't want that, so let's delete it. In fact, what we want to do for a small airfield like this, you're either ever going to go for a ramp GA, which is what you'd normally do, but a ramp general aviation will often end up with auto-generated marshallers, pushback carts and all of that. And if you're like flying into bush strips or you're editing bush strips, you don't want any of that. Whereas if you select dock GA, which is a water dock, or it's meant for seaplanes, but you can use it on land. And we'll click on one-click placing, and then we can bring it in and place it here. And we'll remove one-click placing. Now we've got parking dock GA. It says it's giving a warning, and the warning is in yellow. That's just because I've not connected it to a runway. And unless it's something that you want our AI traffic or ATC to sort of say take taxiway Alpha Bravo Charlie, that's a taxiway path. It's the logic of the simulator, but you don't need that for bush strips, so you can just leave it as it is. But we'll click on it. You can reposition it if you want, and what we'll do is we'll right click and bring up the properties for it. We can give it a name, call it parking 1. Well, actually, there's probably quite a few parking already at this airfield, because this is adding on top of the existing scenery from the base sim. It's not overwriting it, it's just adding to it. We can change the type here if we wanted to. We can change the radius. The radius doesn't really matter. Otherwise, it sort of dictates where certain objects will spawn, like fuel trucks and things like that, but we'll make it smaller. And then you can do other things here to add number markings and things like that. You don't need to worry about any of that. One thing you might want to do though is change the orientation of it. So if you look down on it, I'll just minimize this window here. You can see that is the direction the aircraft will point in when you spawn in, and that accords to a heading of due south. So maybe we want it 160, and you see that has it more pointing that way. Make it 155. There we go. And yeah, that's you can control that. That's fine, and that is all you need to do to add a parking space. And it's really handy for those bush strips that don't have any parking at all. So we can close that down. We can save the scenery and quit out. And all you're going to do is quit out and then build a package just like you did before, showed in the previous segment. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you found that useful. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and have happy times with your digital chainsaws getting rid of all of those crazy trees.